Good evening and welcome to the April 13th Board of Education meeting. At this time, we'd like to entertain a motion to move into executive session in accordance with the Open Meetings Law to discuss personnel matters, collective bargaining, and litigation. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.
No, we have one negative.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 13th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Please welcome Emily Crowl, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no changes in the meeting agenda today.
Of course, this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the most wonderful part of our board meeting where we get to recognize our students and staff. And we're going to begin this evening with a Nassau student, and it is my pleasure to introduce the principal of Nassau Elementary School, Miss Heather Livney.
Thank you very much to our Board of Education. I am truly honored to introduce Mr. Prinzo, who is our 6th grade IG teacher. Mr. Prinzo will introduce and talk a little bit about Emily Crowl's honor this evening, but I would like to recognize him for all of his hard work and dedication for our 6th grade IG students at Nassau, as well as all of the financial literacy and invest right opportunities he's provided for his students. So please welcome Mr. Prinzo.
I'd like to thank the Board of Education for having us here to honor Emily Crowl, and specifically Mrs. Pedicic and Dr. Scanlon for coming to Nassau to help us honor her in a ceremony where we had members from SIFMA who allow us to, they offer the stock market game and the Invest Right program. And so they wanted to honor Emily there. And so we had a beautiful ceremony, and thank you to Mrs. Levine for helping us organize that, and Mrs. Parata, and of course our PTA, who also bought decorations. They did a fabulous job. It really was wonderful. I just want to tell you really quickly a little bit about the program. Every year since I've started, we've been playing the stock market game. And basically what that is they get $100,000 in a virtual portfolio that they can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. They can buy long, they can buy short. And so we start from ground zero, not knowing anything about it, and we go through learning all about it. And so we did play in the fall. And as a secondary piece of that, they have a literacy component called Invest Right. And this is where they get to respond to a prompt that they change the prompt usually slightly each year. And basically they get to, talk about what they would do in their future. And it really is the crux of the whole program, because you can just go in there and just push buttons and buy and sell things and really not know what you're doing. But to be able to articulate it into an essay is something else. And the thing that makes this really super special is that since they've started Invest Right, they've had over 250,000 essays submitted. Each year they have over 6,000 professionals in the financial industry that are the judges for these essays. And this year, not only did they have over 5,000 essays, but in the category that Emily won, which is grades 6 to 8, she's competing against 7th and 8th graders, there was almost 1,300 essays. So out of the 1,300 essays that were reviewed by these professionals, she was selected the 4th place winner nationally, which to date I've never even had an essay win at all or even be taken to the next level. So this is an amazing achievement. So I'd like to congratulate Emily and have her come on up here so we can give you a beautiful certificate. I just want to tell you really quickly two things about her essay that I thought was really great. I'm not going to have her read it because it's a little bit long, and she had oral surgery, so she really can't. But she did a great job with the pledge. So this year they were supposed to kind of think about their future and what they would do, and they were supposed to look specifically, I believe, into technology, medicine, and also space exploration, which would be right up your alley, Ben. But she wrote, I'm just going to read you two lines from it. It just says, think about the future. What do you see? When I look to the future, I see greener energy, better medicine, and space exploration like it has never been before. And then she goes on in the second paragraph, and this is what really got me. She said, when I think about the future, I picture a better world. And what I have seen being in the classroom, I've seen kids, you know, they're losing that. They're losing that luster of the future. And so to have her still see it and write about it and articulate it, it was very touching. And I knew when I submitted this that it had a really great shot because it was a super comprehensive essay, really wise beyond her years, and it was recognized because it really is superb. So thank you.
If Mr. and Mrs. Crowl would like to come up and join us for a picture, that would be wonderful.
And Mrs. Parata, too, if you could.
Thank you. And Mr. Prinzo, I'm going to ask you to send a copy of Emily's essay to Ms. Germano so she can distribute it to the board. It was an outstanding essay and very impressive. So thank you and congratulations, Emily. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. William Bernhardt, who principal of Ward Melville High School.
This is a really exciting evening for Ward Melville High School and the Three Village School District. I was just having a sidebar conversation with Amber Law's mom, and she was saying thank you so much to the high school and to the school district for providing this opportunity. And what I mean by this, in a few minutes you're about to hear things like #1 in the state, $150,000 scholarship, #3 in the United States of America in a world-renowned contest, ABC interviews, things of that nature. And we have someone to thank for this who has put her heart and soul into this program and has created it really to be not just #1 in Long Island, but one of the top programs in the United States of America. Our science chairperson and in-star coordinator, Dr. Marnie Kula.
Hi, everyone. I love the podium. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see all of you and not worry about people sitting behind me. So, amazing improvement. Thank you. So, as Mr. Bernhard alluded to, it has been quite an amazing year in science for Ward Melville, and considering everything that we've been through, it really does restore our hope in the future. And much as Emily was writing about in her essay for that banner, by the way, is really nice. That InventRight is a really nice banner. But I'm assuming I'm going to see you in InStar as well. And it just reinvigorates our hope in the future. And I am here to talk about two of the InStar seniors who I think will convince you that we may be okay. So as Mr. Bernhard was alluding to, the Regeneron STS, which is the Science Talent Search this year, was, I think they received over 1,800 submissions, or 18,000, Amber. 1,800, whoa, I almost went 18,000. 18 million? No, okay. And so nearly 2,000 students across America did research that was of the caliber that they could write a scientific manuscript, and they could fill out an application and telling the judges a little bit about themselves. And what the Regeneron committee really likes to know about is how the students see themselves in the world and how they see themselves fitting into the future and how they see things that they might be able to provide solutions to in that future. So I hate to have to talk about the pandemic, but I am just briefly because I just want you to realize what these two students have been up against. So they are the class of 2022. One of the most amazing classes to graduate from Ward Melville. I think Mr. Bernhard can agree. They are top notch. When they came into InStar as sophomores, they were already nipping at the seniors' heels, wanting to do things that the seniors were doing. And we were already amazed at how driven they were already, but driven in a great way, just wanting to be involved, wanting to do things. And then March 13th, 2020 came along. And so this class really has endured the pandemic in bookends, sort of. They started their sophomore year at Ward Melville, and we were just getting to really know them in InStar, starting to do our in-house research projects as sophomores, and we went home on March 13th, never to come back. And then junior year was awkward because it was part virtual, part being home. But the worst part was most of the research opportunities for students went online. And so many students had to fall out of the program because they didn't have the ability to do projects virtually. So that's where the two candidates who we're going to talk about today, Billy Zhang and Amber Law, come into just shine in this condition. They took disappointment and they took a hard scenario, and yet they were able to turn that around and get themselves into positions where they could identify problems and create actionable solutions to those problems. And I'm going to let them talk just very briefly. They're going to give you extremely layperson summaries of their work, but they are truly creators. They created the projects that they're going to tell you about. So yes, they were guided. Yes, they had some help along the way, but these two really do stand on their own in terms of a lot of this came from them. So while I appreciate the credit, they are what they are on their own as much as they are because they went through Ward Melville and because they went through the InStar program. So first, I do have my my little certificates that I'm going to give them. So first, I think I'm going to have them I'm going to call them up. So William Zhang, William goes by Billy. So, yeah, I'm going to let you hold on to this. Okay, you're going to hang on to that. So Billy was one of our Regeneron scholars. So he was one of the top 300 students out of the 1,800 plus field that originally applied to the Science Talent Search. And Billy created something called Hydra. And I'm going to give him the mic so that he can give you a quick little summary of what he did.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I was just told about this speech like 10 minutes ago, so I'm just gonna, give a rundown. Yeah, so yeah, my research has to do with cybersecurity. So I kind of asked the question, when we talk to computers, when we outsource computation from like a client to a server, normally the server, like Google or Amazon, they'll execute the computation, and we kind of just have to trust that it's accurate, right? So I don't think that's cool, because essentially we're giving all of our trust into these very centralized authorities. So, yeah, I made a protocol that essentially forces these servers to provide proofs that the computation executed is correct. So these are kind of like cryptographic mathematical proofs that the server will give to the client, such that the client can be statistically convinced that the server has indeed performed the computation correctly. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I have a question. So does this protocol, can this protocol be forced for the server to observe the protocol, or is this a third-party thing that the
Yeah, the server is forced to observe the protocol, and it's pretty much like a conversation between the server and the client. And at any point, if the server provides an incorrect response to a challenge, then the client will reject the proof.
Wow, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was awesome. Stay by me. All right. Not bad, right? That was an excellent layperson summary. I said, you know how computers talk, so Amber had given me that little line earlier today. She says, yeah, they talk. The computers talk. I was like, okay. So Billy is going to be traveling next week, trying to decide on which university to go to, but he's got some really hard choices, Yale, Harvard, MIT, so he'll have to settle for one of those, I guess. All right. And now Amber Law also shared in becoming a Regeneron Scholar. So she and Billy were two of our scholars this year. And then Amber went on to be selected as one of the 40 finalists for the Science Talent Search this year. That meant that she traveled down to Washington, D.C. for 5 days, where she took her show on the road. And she presented her research in front of renowned judges who are experts in their field, and really was able to do the stand and deliver. So it's one thing to write a manuscript. It's one thing to create great essays and submit your application online. It's another to talk to people in person and have them question things about your research, and you need to think on your feet. You need to quickly troubleshoot. You need to wonder where they're going with the question. You need to maintain your, decorum, and you can't really get too upset. And she was able to do all of that. And as I'm sure you're all aware, she was selected third in the nation. So I think we should just stop right there and just think about 3 out of over 1,800 students in the United States, and she was selected number 3, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so as you may or may not know, this program was started by George Baldo back in 1998, and George did very well until everybody started copying the Instar program, and now we've got competition all over the island. But he really was a trendsetter. The last we got was, I think, 5th place in 2009, I believe. So this is really quite an amazing accomplishment. So Amber, why don't you come up and join Billy, and I will give you your certificate. So Amber did go on the Whirlwind Tour, and it was much like, it is like she's being followed by paparazzi. So soon after she was named the Regeneron finalist, we went to LICEF, and LICEF is held in Nassau County, and all of the kids who knew about Amber, they were waiting for her. And so we come into LICEF, and we're in this big catering hall, and we're setting up our posters, and we're making sure everything is set, and there is this pack of young men, and they're just waiting, right? They're just waiting. They're watching her. They're being respectful. They're letting her set up her poster because she's Amber. I mean, she is an amazing celebrity. She's got paparazzi following her. These young men came up to her and were so just amazed to be in her presence, to ask her what it was like, to just kind of do that 6 degrees of separation thing where, we talk to Amber so they can go home and tell all their friends. So that was really endearing to see that she has such a following because of the work she does. And one thing about Billy and Amber, they're both smart kids, right? They're really smart. But it's what they do with their smarts that really sets them apart, and it sets most of the kids that are in the InStar program apart. So again, it's the fact that they look for actionable solutions and then they put those into work and they get those things done and they persevere. So I am going to give up the podium to Amber for one quick second so she can give you a layperson summary of her work. You may have seen her on News 12, you may have seen her on ABC News, and I can report here that she will be featured in the new National Geographic series called Science Fair. So if you didn't see the original, which came out a couple of years ago, I believe in 2017, she is going to be one of the students that they're going to be focusing on for the new series. They'll be down in Atlanta with us, as Amber is our ISEF finalist, and she will be going to the International Science and Engineering Fair in May, and she'll be followed with by a bunch of cameras. So it's going to be great fun. So Amber, why don't you tell everybody about what you did?
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Kula, for the introduction. This is my first time speaking at a podium like this, so kind of scary, but hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So before I give like kind of a layperson summary of my work, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the rigor and kind of what went like behind the scenes of applying to Regeneron STS. So Regeneron STS likes to call themselves like the most prestigious science and math competition in the nation, and they've earned this kind of name through the rigor of their selection process. So when Billy and I and everybody here in the senior InStar program applied to the Regeneron STS, we didn't only submit like a 30-page, 20-page research manuscript. We also had to submit like 7 or 8 essays, recommendation letters. It was a holistic review process to see not only the work we've done, but also the way we think and how we innovate and solve scientific problems. So going to Washington, D.C., Dr. Kula is absolutely right that like it takes an incredible amount of like I don't really know how to say it, like poise and kind of like courage to be able to face against these judges who have read your paper like probably like tens of times and like ask you the most difficult questions that you've ever been asked about your research. And a little bit about the judging that happens at Washington, D.C. So there are 3 days of judging, and on the first 2 days they give you what are called panel interviews, and this is like the scariest part of judging because there's like 5 different rooms, and each room has 3 judges, and these judges are like, they're mathematicians, they're computer scientists, they're physicists. Like, I'm a biologist, right? And these people are asking me questions about physics and computer science just to see how I think on my feet and how I can answer types of scientific questions. So I just feel like I just want to like, obviously nobody from the Science Talent Search is here to hear me say this, but I think that the Science Talent Search is really one of the like best and most rigorous ways to like bring together students who are passionate about science, and just being able to be in Washington, D.C. with all these PhD scientists and other students who are so excited and passionate about STEM was really like truly the best week of my life. And like the energy, it was always overwhelming in Washington, D.C. So I just kind of wanted to say like it was, applying to Regeneron STS was a very long, arduous, exhausting process, but it is so worth it. And so for any parents here or like sophomores, juniors, like do research, apply to Regeneron STS. It is the best thing in the world. Anyway, okay, so about my research. So basically, let's consider like a regular healthy cell. So in our body, cells carry out a variety of functions, like from dividing to secreting hormones, and all of these functions depend on certain proteins. And so we can like basically say that proteins are responsible for the functions of cells. And so cells have to precisely regulate the types of proteins that they produce so that they can function in the proper ways. But in diseases, most notably cancer and sometimes in some neurodegenerative disorders, this process of creating proteins is dysregulated, meaning it does not function properly. And one of the main goals that researchers want to obtain when learning about a new disease is how does this process of protein synthesis, how does it change in this disease state for every single gene within our human genome? And there are like 19,000 coding genes inside of our genome. So you can imagine how much data we have about like how this protein synthesis changes across conditions. Well, the problem now that we face is that we have so much data, but we don't have any reliable computational tools to actually understand how does the process of translation, otherwise known as protein synthesis, actually change in disease states. So we want to precisely understand these molecular changes that occur. And so in my project, I created a new computational tool, and I called it RiboBayes. The name comes from ribo for ribosome, which is like a very important molecular machine that creates proteins, and Bayes for Bayesian mathematical techniques that I used. So basically what RiboBayes does is it scans like these large volumes of data. Like you have, like it would crash my computer sometimes, but it goes through these humongous data sets and it picks out these very important regulatory sites called ribosome pause sites, which are responsible for ensuring that the process of protein synthesis occurs correctly. And RiboBayes is able to tell researchers for every single ribosome pause site it finds in the genome, how does it change in, for example, a tumor state, and why is this important for us researchers and doctors to know. And so by creating RiboBayes, I hope it'll like highlight novel molecular pathways and proteins that can help doctors and researchers create new drugs and therapies to treat patients. All right. I was wondering if anyone would have any questions, but
I don't think anybody has any questions.
How long did it take you to come up with the idea?
Yes. So this is all right. So a lot of people who apply to the Regeneron STS work on their projects for like 2 or more years. I started my project in July of 2021, so I worked on it for like about 4 months. So the way I like started my project, this is also very important for anybody who's interested in getting into research. So what I did is I applied to a summer research program, and I applied to one called the Research Science Institute. And for people who like want to like get into research, applying to a summer program is one of the best ways to do it. So I applied to this program called RSI, or Research Science Institute, and I was accepted, and then the staff like read my essays, and like in my essays I talked about how I wanted to integrate my passion for mathematics with my interest in biology to create like mathematical solutions to biological problems. So I read about all of this in my essays, and then the people who run RSI like matched me with a mentor from the University of Texas at Austin. And then I started my research, like I was matched with him in May of 2021, and then I started it in July, and I worked on it until around like late August, and then I started writing my manuscript. So in total, like I really only like did the coding for the project in about 2 months. The reason why it took me like such a short amount of time was because the RSI is an extremely like intensive research program, and I remember like people don't see like what goes on behind the scenes of research, but I would stay up until like 4 a.m. like coding. My mom knows. I did not sleep at all during the summer, and like it was a very fun time for me. Like being able to explore and just like chase my scientific ideas was very like, it was just the best time of my life. It was also very exhausting. I don't recommend like not sleeping. But yeah, so it took me about like 2-3 months for the coding, about a month to write the manuscript and prepare the presentation. Yep.
Thank you.
Oh yes, I had to borrow one of my mom's laptops because mine kept crashing. Yeah.
I just want to say that the two of you, Billy and Amber, have such amazing and awesome personalities. And on top of that, being so incredibly intelligent and smart and passionate, your personalities, that's the key. And you two are absolutely amazing, and we are all very, very proud of you, and wish you only the best, and we have no doubt that you're going places, especially with those great personalities and high energy, and you got the full package.
Yep. Thank you.
You nailed it on the head. That's exactly what they've got. So they're able to talk about it, they're able to communicate it, and that's going to make all the difference. So
So if your parents are here, I know Amber's mom is here. I don't know, Billy, if your parents are here. We're going to ask them to join us for a picture.
Okay.
Billy, Amber, I just want to say I know you've had so many, accolades and congratulations from the faculty and the Board of Ed and teachers. I want you to know that the senior class, even people you would never think, we are so proud of you. Amber, I've never met you before, and it's an honor to be in your presence. Billy, I've known you for a while, but people you don't even know, we're just so happy that you're in the class of 22. We know you're going to make such an impact on the world beyond what any of us can understand. And everyone talked about your accomplishments, like sports people in student government that I know, and literally everyone's just amazed. We're so happy that you're in our class.
Bill, do you want to stay up here and? Yeah. Okay.
Do science. Yeah, me up again? Okay. Hi, it's still me. So, one thing that's really, I think, fitting about the fact that we are about to honor our next group is that Billy and Amber have been active members of this next group since they were able to be members of it back when they were in the junior high. And it's amazing because the Science Olympiad team and the work that they do is often where I find people to join Instar. And I tap kids on the shoulder and say, hey, how come you're not an Instar? Well, okay, why don't you apply to Instar? But the things that they do in Science Olympiad really does foster great thinking when we start to do our own research and we start to tackle our own questions. So without further ado, I'm standing in for Jenny Saragano, the infamous Jenny Saragano, who unfortunately is homesick tonight. But her partner in crime is here. And Mr. Souser, if you'd like to come up. All right, the list is here.
Okay, great.
And I'm just going to be this.
All right. Thank you very much. We're really happy to honor the Science Olympiad team this year. Thank you to the board. Thank you to STEM Foundation. Thank you for the community for their support. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and this is one of the top teams we've had come through the school. Their achievement of first place in New York State is only the third time we've done that in the history of the Ward Melville High School team, okay? And so it's a huge accomplishment for them. And it just goes to their dedication to the team, their commitment, all the competitions we participated in, their overcoming the virtual, COVID experience. It's been a little surreal this year, but it's been amazing at their accomplishments at all the competitions we did, and to finally go to states in person and for them to perform after being away from it. Some of the students had never even gone to a state competition, and the way they perform there, that's really where I saw them shine and rise to the occasion. And that's not easy to do when if you're online and you're comfortable in your house, that's one thing, taking these tests. But when you're there and you have to have all your gear and equipment together, make it to the event on time with your partner and sit there amongst other peers there and take the test, that's really a challenging thing to do. And they really rose to the occasion. They came through, and we couldn't be more proud of them this year to achieve first place in New York State. So they're a great team, and we'd like to honor them with certificates this year. And to the seniors who are graduating, best of luck. You made the team this year really what it was. And of course, to our two captains, Claire and Amber, this year, they were absolutely superstars this year in organizing this team. and getting them to commit their time and energy to really performing at their best. And of course, Ms. Saragano, who can't be here tonight, she holds the team together. She really works with them upstairs in the science wing there, and together we put together this team, and it's pretty amazing accomplishment. So we'd like to honor them all. So first up, Alexander Lynn, come on up. Alexander, congratulations, buddy. Great year. Alexandra Dwan. Congratulations. Great.
I love the fact that they're wearing their bling bling.
Yeah.
All the clinking before. I was like, what is that? Oh, it's
Amber.
the medals.
Benjamin Paldy. Billy Zhang. Okay, another one for you. Claire Yang. Congratulations, Claire. David Liang. Oh, he's not here tonight? Okay. Emily. Hannah Lynn. Ivan G. Not here.
Skip all the senior guys.
Okay. So Johnny's not here. Okay. Kate's son. Michael Meliekin. Yeah, we get that one right. Neil. Okay, Neil's not here. Neil Carpino. Owen Donk. Rahul's not here. Sahana Gupta. Sophia Konerich, come on up. And Vivian's not here. Oh, Vivian, come on up. Vivian, last but not least. All right. Okay, terrific.
We're going to take a picture, but we're also going to ask the parents to join us because part of this triangle between the teachers, the students, is our amazing parents. So we're going to ask you to come up and join your children in this picture.
Lead the way. Captains lead the way. Arrange your people. Tall guys in the back. You're going to have to do layers.
Yeah. Like it's going to be like a wedding photo.
just going to say one thing. On.
Just one final piece of information. It's ironic, but absolutely serendipitous that on this team today of people you heard, could Alexander Lin and Claire Yang just rise for 1 second, please? Rise for 1 second. Today, Alexander was announced as Ward Melville's salutatorian and Claire as the valedictorian. Congratulations.
So we congratulate all of our amazing students who are here this evening, their families, our staff. Thank you. You are impressive, and we wish you well. We also know that you get up very early in the morning, so we will not be insulted if at this point you would like to leave, but you are certainly welcome to stay. However, if you want to depart, we will give you an opportunity to leave at this time. All up to you. So.
Good luck
Thank
with
you.
your national competition.
So we just came off, if you haven't watched, obviously, what just occurred, the most favorite part of all board meetings. I'd like to take this opportunity to say a couple of things. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented challenges that could have not been anticipated or conceived, and yet our district remains steadfast and devoted to providing the best academic, social, and emotional supports possible to our students despite these overwhelming challenges. As a district, we are proud of our accomplishments and fully recognize that this achievement was one of teamwork, collaboration, and dedication from all stakeholders. Our teachers served on the front lines and deserve our respect and admiration, which they have. Our amazing families stood behind us and trusted us as we navigated the absolute unknown at the time. A group that must also be applauded and acknowledged is our exceptional administrators who made certain that student needs were always addressed. And so we take this moment to laud their efforts. It is important to recognize the important contributions that they have made and continue to make to our district. We must also always remember that it takes a village to create an environment of success, and every stakeholder in our district, students, teachers, administrators, parents, community members, have an integral role in our district mission. So thank you for your continued support here and at home. We remain most hopeful that we are on a trajectory that will bring us back to pre-pandemic routines and restore the classroom social environment that we have come to know and value. And this is on behalf of the Board of Education. Thank you all very, very much. I have to have it in writing, or I get it's just me. Okay, so all right. So now we're going to go on to number 5, reports. A, student representative report. Riley Meckley from the high school.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start off with the senior trip. Since we just got back this weekend, hundreds of students have come back talking about how much fun they've had at the Universal theme park in Florida. The trip was very memorable, and everyone enjoyed walking around the park, going on roller coasters, and seeing their favorite movies come to life. It was a wonderful way to spend time with our peers, and we all came home with lots of memories, sunburns, and laughs. Some sports updates. Now that the spring season is in full swing, I'm happy to report that girls badminton, girls lacrosse, and boys tennis are all undefeated, and they have not lost a single game. So good job to them. A little info on student life. By now, the sophomores and juniors have chosen their classes and electives for next year. Many juniors have started drafting college essays in English class. And the seniors have come to the sad conclusion that we only have a few more weeks left at Ward Melville. By now, most know what college we are attending or what we plan on doing next year. And for those who don't know, big decisions have to be made by May 1st, because that is when colleges want you to accept or decline their school. Today, student government hosted the Battle of the Classes. This was the first time a Battle of the Classes happened in years. Students in all grades came to the gym right after school and participated in different games and events. The junior class won, and everyone in attendance had a great time. This event was a fundraiser with all the money going to support childhood cancer for the St. Baldrick's Foundation. The Ward Melville Career Fair was a great success. Dozens of businesses came and hundreds of students flocked to the gym in interest of learning about possible jobs. The Three Village Industry Advisory Board did a wonderful job advertising and running this event. The Trium Music Club did an awesome job hosting Ward Melville's Got Talent earlier this month. Lots of students went to see their peers perform in a variety of acts, and staff members were the judges, and they got to pick the winners. Coming up on May 5th, student government is hosting a school-wide blood drive, and I should have more to report on end-of-the-year activities at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Bernhardt, for taking 250 seniors to Florida. 305. Oh, excuse me. It doesn't matter at that point. And survived, and there were no incidents, and everybody was on their best behavior. No one was hospitalized. It was fantastic to hear. So we're all very, very happy about that. Thank you. Okay, next up on reports is letter B, technology plan. Deidre Rubenster.
Right. Our director, our executive director of technology, Deirdre Rubenster.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Hello, Three Village. Thank you to the district administration as well as the Board of Education for having me here this evening to talk about my favorite subject, which of course is technology. We are going to take you through the 2022 to 2025 technology plan this evening and give you some oversight into how that plan was developed, what our objectives are going to be for the next couple of years, but also the visioning and the purpose of technology inside of the district itself. So first, our planning process. One of the most unique elements of our department is the fact that we recognize that technology is not actually about tools. Technology is about augmenting our daily lives. The invention of fire was a tool. We're really just taking something innovative and applying it to the process of teaching and learning, because after all, that's what this is all about. We needed to reflect on the previous plan, how our initiatives impacted students and teachers, both positively and negatively, because of course, anytime you add something, you've also taken something away. So really taking a critical eye towards what technology integration has done for students and teachers and families in Three Village. We had to engage with various stakeholder groups, and there are many. They include our curriculum development committee, program review, our leadership team, both professional development and professional steering, which I'm so grateful to be a part of because it allows us to be a part of the visioning process for the school district, and of course the technology committee. We engage with many different curricular components as well, both elementary and secondary curriculum, English language and multilingual learners, and our PPS department, taking a look at how technology impacts our special education students. Additionally, technology is the most intersectional department inside of the Three Village School District. It touches every single individual, whether you are a student, a teacher, but also human resources, our business department, our security department. We really get to see the unique interlocking pieces, how they fit together and how they move as one. We also needed to analyze COVID, of course, the most overused word of the last 2 years. In a lot of ways, COVID was a catalyst. And while many of us reflect on COVID negatively, I have the unique position to reflect on COVID positively because it did what I could never do. It created a sense of urgency inside of all of us to become better users of technology, to innovate. In that sense, I'm a little grateful for the pandemic. It's my sincere hope, in the same way that we had a reopening committee, that we also debrief from this experience, because it's incredibly important for us to get everyone together, talk about what worked really well, and what practices we need to give people permission to let go of. I hear people talk about going back. It's been nearly 3 years. There is before, there is after, and then there is what comes next. And we need to take some time to decompress from this situation in order to determine what that next step is going to look like. Being in technology is so inspiring to me because it allows us to really take a strategic position in guiding the district to what's to come. In terms of action, we took a look at both techniques we wanted to translate through technology tools, as well as components of effective instruction. So we knew that we needed to use technology in order to improve direct instruction, class discussion, group work, and differentiation, because our teachers told us that those were the most impactful teaching strategies. We also knew that we needed to find ways to reimagine student-to-teacher contact, checking for understanding, collaborative and authentic work products, as well as to be able to innovate. I think the collaborative and authentic work products is something that we're going to hear so much more about, especially as the Board of Regents makes their transition away from standardized assessment to more project-based assessment. And technology is going to be integral in what that looks like. So, what's our presentation going to cover today? Oh, I was a little out of order. We went through our planning process already. We'll talk about the core values that guide the technology department. We are an extremely strategic group. We align ourselves entirely and consistently measure ourselves against our objectives. We'll talk about the goals and the action plans, and then I will actually give you an opportunity to meet some members of the team, because of course, this isn't the type of thing that you can do alone. So our core values. We've redefined technology. Technology is no longer a tool. It is applying innovation to teaching and learning to engage in the process of continuous improvement. I want to take a moment actually to highlight a book that I read this year that was recommended to me by Gina Verace. She's one of our educational technology coaches. She actually ran a professional learning circle around this text. And it's called Think Again by Adam Grant. And the one thing that this book really drove home for me, if you have not had a chance to read it, please check it out, was the idea that I could never marry myself to one of my decisions, because something that I made today could be entirely different tomorrow as the parameters change. And the only thing that I could count on was that I was going to have to constantly redevelop myself, redevelop my team, redevelop our goals, and find new ways for us to get there. We've attributed this quote to Kit. I would like to take a moment to call out the art department at Ward Melville High School, which designed this logo, which we have affectionately named Kit. Inside of their branding unit, the students developed lots of artwork for us in order to brand our vision and our mission, and they really came up with some beautiful results. So thank you so much to the art department for doing that for us. We have some guiding principles around technology integration, and we marry every single use of technology up to these principles. We do not use technology for the sake of using technology. We do not learn how to use a tool so that we can say, I know how to use a mouse, I know how to use a keyboard, I know how to use Nearpod, I know how to use Padlet. Technology should be used for one of these reasons: to create efficiency, to increase engagement, to foster independent learning, to improve achievement or transform teaching. Simply put, if the tool does not do this, it should not be used. There are some things that are not broken, and we don't want to touch those. But we do want to find the entry points where we know that we can increase efficiency, engagement, learning, and achievement. Technology integration needs to be deliberate, continuous, and purposeful. This is not about tools. This is about strategy. This is about envisioning the kind of district that we want to be and taking incremental steps in order to get there. Envisioning what we want our teaching to look like and what we want our students to produce, not to consume, but to produce. So we have some goals. There are 3 of them inside of the 2022 to 2025 technology plan. And the first goal is centered around teaching and learning. We want students to seamlessly use technology. Technology, as it augments your life, should never be clunky. It should never feel awkward or out of place. But we want them to apply it at the earliest practical point and then to continue to use it throughout their educational careers. We want students to use technology to be critical thinkers. We want them to collaborate with one another and be creative. We know that this innovation, not the tools, but the innovation of technology is going to further our educational plan, but it's also going to result in measurable outcomes, teaching and learning. So here's how we get there. Our first step, planning. Planning for this vision is going to include input from many of the different groups that you've heard about before. Professional steering, professional development, the technology committee, grade level meetings, department meetings, district leadership, union leadership, parent involvement. One of the latest initiatives that we've had the pleasure of being involved in, which is going to expand greatly next year, is Parent University. So I'd just like to thank Erin Connolly for inviting us to be involved. We know that parents are partners. I could not possibly police the internet. I need parents to tell me what's going on, to keep that open line of communication about what's working well in their home so that we can supplement a child's education. As far as curriculum goes, we are an integral part of curriculum development, and we will continue to be so. That includes meeting with the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, the Director of Secondary Curriculum, directors, department chairs, grade level, and content area specialists. It is important for us to understand how technology marries itself up to curriculum. Because again, technology for the sake of technology is a pretty useless skill. But technology to advance curriculum is incredibly important. We're going to evaluate this by taking a look at both the quantitative and the qualitative data. So we can look at utilization data from our various software programs. We can survey our students, our teachers, and parents to find out what's working well and what is in need of improvement. And also our benchmarking data and our state assessment data, which you saw at the last board meeting presented by the incredibly talented Laura Pimentel. Our second goal is designed around building capacity. So we need to take teachers and continue to promote their comfort with the use of technology and also their competency with using technology. You can know how to teach, you can know your content, and you can know how to use a tool. But partnering those two up to come up with something transformative is incredibly difficult to do. So we aim to provide continuous professional development. And what's so unique about our model is that it includes observation, modeling, co-teaching, and collaboration. This is something that many other coaching models don't actually employ. But we'll talk a little later about our co-teaching initiatives. We also need to equip teachers to use technology to create a student-centered environment to enhance their learning process. We have to build scalable processes. We have to align our schools and our departments and our grade levels. And we have many living resources that we use in order to do that. One of them we very affectionately refer to as the playbook. Now, it's intimidating to stand here in front of all of you today, but what's even more intimidating is that my husband's at home watching me on YouTube. And when I get home, I will say to him, "How did I do?" And he'll be like, "Meh." So I borrowed this idea from him of building a playbook. It's something that he does in his corporate life, something that I had done in mine. Our playbook has been so successful that we were able to present it to the Eastern Suffolk BOCES Curriculum Council. And there are many other districts who have reached out in order to copy the resources that we have created. What's most important about a playbook is that it keeps us all aligned. It keeps us moving in step with one another. And it continues to build that team capacity. So how are we going to get there? Well, first there's research. but my version of research and your version of research are probably a little different. Dr. Scanlon just created his dissertation. I'm sure that he was reading lots of academic sources, whereas I'm listening to podcasts in my car of the latest and greatest educators telling me how they're incorporating technology tools. Technology is always so much so on the cutting edge that we have to find it. We have to find inspiration on Twitter, on Reddit, on podcasts, experimenting with one another, really in order to stay abreast of the latest and greatest. We want to continue to expand upon our communication documents. Yes, of course, that includes the technology playbook, which is an internal resource for our staff members, but also our user agreements, our parent resources, our parent university. We also do a very fun Tech Tip Tuesday. I almost started this presentation with the theme song. I just, coming out to music seemed like it was going to work for me, as well as our quarterly instructional technology newsletter. We are taking a look at changing our professional development. Why? Because professional development needs to be focused on content and not on tools. So how do we do that? We have meetings with grade level experts. We really dive deep into their curriculum in order to marry up tools in the best possible ways and develop these transformative lessons, create opportunities that we never had available to us before. We also offer this kind of training in so many different modalities, but again, the most popular one has become the co-planning and co-teaching. It is an extremely unique element. And finally, leaning on the support of our staff. So our teachers benefit from access to peers, from building-specific, grade-level-specific, department-specific coaching. We're going to evaluate this in similar ways. We'll take a look at the utilization data from our software programs. We'll take a look at our touch point data. What do we collect when we are talking to teachers face-to-face, when we're giving small group instruction, virtual one-on-one presentations, as we're training and creating these tutorials? We'll take a look at the quantitative data that's produced from our professional development course enrollment, completion, and feedback forms. We'll survey our students, our teachers, and our parents. We want to partner with our administrators to see what they're seeing as they observe teachers who are integrating technology. And also take a look at our assessment data, our benchmarking, and our state assessments. Sorry, I'm getting a little winded. There's not much room left in my abdomen these days. No, I'm good. Thanks. Our third goal is based around infrastructure and security. And I have to call out infrastructure as the unsung hero and also the one that's taken for granted the most. You never appreciate your Wi-Fi until Netflix goes out, kind of like that. So we need to maintain and upgrade our already robust network by constantly evaluating it against what we're trying to do. And we also need to create a culture of awareness of best cybersecurity practices, and that really runs for both teachers and students. As far as infrastructure goes, we have a very big infrastructure project coming up this summer. We have 330 access points that will be reaching end of life that we'll be upgrading. But we're going to also take a look at transitioning from a reactive to a proactive maintenance structure, which is going to allow us to be much more responsive to bandwidth needs. Security doesn't just deal with the staff, it also deals with the students. One of the things that I've learned from some recent Ward Melville graduates is that password that we gave them in 6th grade, they're still using. And it's for their bank account now, and they're using it at work. Yeah, that's kind of scary. So we are launching a new initiative with our 5th graders that we're going to graduate up, where we're teaching them about password complexity, and we're rolling out more complex passwords for them that are going to graduate up. We'll be doing similar things with our staff, taking a look at threat notifications, best practices, conducting penetration testing. Everyone's going to be so happy when they get the knock on the door from me about whether or not I could crack their password. So how are we going to do this? Again, we're going to stay on top of the latest and greatest trends with research, but communication here is really key because what I've learned is that in order for people to care about safety, they also need to understand the risks. People don't just blindly follow. I don't say, don't go through that door. Of course you want to go through that door. I just told you not to go through that door. So we need to make sure people understand that an 8-character, all lowercase password can be broken in a matter of minutes. But a 12-character password that contains an uppercase letter, a symbol, and 2 numbers will take 63,000 years in order to break. We need to give people that sort of context so that they can make really good choices about protecting themselves. As far as evaluation goes, we're conducting monthly penetration testing and also testing of our users periodically through phishing notifications in order to really train their behavior. Finally, purchasing. Infrastructure has a price tag associated with it. So we have to make very good choices about what we're going to replace and when and why in order to balance the fiscal needs of the district versus the infrastructure needs of the department. We'll evaluate these by continuously quizzing users during these educational campaigns, but we'll also be able to take a look at utilization reports to make sure that we're providing an infrastructure that's supportive enough to manage our needs. One of the final pieces of the technology plan was equitable learning, everywhere, all the time. Many people think of equitable learning as access to wireless and to devices, but it's also access to really well-trained educators who know how to work with these tools. We've created the permanent resources. We have expanded modeling and co-teaching. We have absorbed assistive technology. We provide all of the assistive technology consults for both students and teachers in-house, which is, just a really beautiful partnership. And we do the same for our English language learners. You okay? All right. So I just want to talk for a moment about who we are, because while I love to take the credit, it's not me. So I very affectionately call my team the Dream Team. I am one of those very lucky people who really loves my job, but also deeply respects the people that I work with and has very great relationships with them. And relationships are everything. So the first group of people that I'd like to talk about are our educational technology coaches. So if anybody has a phone and would like to scan that QR code, there is additional material there on what our coaching program actually does. But we've taken a look at analyzing their output. Our educational technology coaches have, and this is on the low side, a 150% personnel to yield gearing ratio. How is a gearing ratio developed? Well, you measure your input to your output, your input being your hours worked and your output being your results. In education, we're in knowledge work, so we measure that with both qualitative and quantitative analysis. We get to constantly benchmark ourselves against our achievements, one of our largest ones this year being co-teaching. Our coaches have co-taught over 80 lessons in the past month alone. That's 80 times that they were in front of students and teachers, modeling, coordinating, planning, and really producing some great work. We also meet monthly to analyze how that output contributes to our larger scale operations. We evaluate that monthly at our team meetings. If you're interested in learning more about this program, I'm always happy to talk. But I just wanted to highlight some really great lessons that we've done recently. So, for example, on the primary level, recently we did co-planning and co-teaching letter sounds and digraphs using Jamboard with reading teachers and our primary students. On the intermediate level, co-planning and co-teaching theme-based video projects on different novels that students are reading, having students produce work instead of just consuming text. On our secondary level, co-planning and co-teaching the How Did We Get Here invention project with our social studies teachers using Padlet. In world language, co-planning and co-teaching sign language using Formative. Our coaches have taken the lead on continuing to advance our STEM, STEAM, STREAM initiatives throughout the district, whatever you want to call it. Co-planning and co-teaching aeroponics tower gardens, particularly over at the entire 5th grade of Minnesota, also using formative. And developing, co-planning, co-teaching emissions rescue from Mars with 5th grade. This one holds a special place in my heart because it's a cost save. We used to pay someone else for an emissions curriculum, and unfortunately it just wasn't working for us. So we wrote our own, and now we roll it out and we developed it, and we co-teach that. In terms of assistive technology, co-planning and co-teaching with resource room teachers to take students who have trouble writing and expressing their ideas in traditional formats to use technology to create alternate work products. Co-planning and co-teaching basic coding skills with iPads with a K-12 ALC class to have them maneuver the Sphero robots. Co-planning and co-teaching an ALC class on calendar skills using Jamboard. I've been most impressed by the initiative that you all, they are here, so I'm kind of talking directly to them. I am most impressed by the initiative that you have taken to constantly embed yourself inside of content. You are teachers first and you are technologists second. And that's why this program is successful, because you continuously lead with best teaching practice. Thank you for that. So our technicians, wow, the job of a technician has changed tremendously in the past 2 years. We are just supporting so many devices. We have over 6,000 one-to-one Chromebooks. We also launched a one-to-one MacBook initiative in specialized art classes at both the junior highs and the high schools, also making use of Adobe Creative Cloud. Why did we do that? I don't know if you're aware, but our art department, those students are the #1 scholarship recipients at Ward Melville High School. They produced some fabulous work, but we knew that if they wanted to be competitive and cutting edge, they also needed the best tools in order to do so. Our iPad supply is focused entirely on assistive technology. So we are maintaining a supply of 100 of those that are used by students as augmentative communication devices. I'm not really a big believer in one type of device. I don't think that's reflective of the real world. I think that I use my iPhone or my Surface Pro or any piece of technology that I have available in front of me, and I hope that our students, through this kind of exposure, are also learning the same. We have had over 3,500 support tickets this year. 65% of those related to Chromebook repairs, and about 35% related to other types of repairs. So our technicians have really moved and transitioned from supporting PCs in our classrooms to supporting devices that are being used by students. One thing that I'm most proud of, we have taught our students to troubleshoot their devices first before bringing them to us for repair. Why do I love this? Because that is a skill I cannot replace. Those students are absolutely going to be by themselves at one point or another, and they are going to be faced with a piece of technology that just doesn't work, is throwing up an error message, is not doing what they want it to do. They know how to troubleshoot from start to finish their own issues, resolve their own problems. It is, one, quite efficient, but two, that's a skill that's going to last them long after they've graduated from Ward Melville. So our investment plan. Our 3-year investment plan is really focused around devices. We're going to continue to marry the right device to the right program and the right software to the right program, because it's really important that we give our students authentic experiences as they're here. Our interactive displays. We are nearly entirely saturated with BenQ boards in our secondary buildings. We'll be moving into our libraries and our 6th grade classrooms before the end of the year. And next year, we will be adding BenQs to grades 4, 5, and 6. I'm particularly interested in this for the elementary level because they are so tactile. And I think that board is going to allow teachers to—
What is a BenQ board?
Oh, it's an interactive flat panel display that's touchable. Andy, you want to give a demonstration? No? Oh, all right, all right. We have one here here down the hall if you want to come and take a look. But so many students can touch it at one time that it really makes it that sort of engaging, interactive, manipulative experience. And I think kids are missing that. I think kids are missing touching and manipulating actual supplies. And this board is going to mimic some of that for them. And finally, our infrastructure. Sure, we're going to replace our wireless access points, but also making sure that we have enough storage space and that we have the right security solutions, considering that schools have been such a threat as of late. Such a target, rather, as of late, not a threat. So, as you can tell, I love to talk about technology. So please, if you have any questions about our program, I am always happy to take a phone call or an email. It is something that I am incredibly passionate about and that I feel really fortunate to get to do. So I'm greatly appreciative of this opportunity. Thanks. Before I waddle myself away, are there any questions that I can answer about our program?
Now, Deirdre, I don't have any questions, but I just want to take an opportunity to thank you and your incredible staff. Through the last 2 years of COVID, and we go back to March 13th, which Dr. Marnie Kula had brought up in talking about our InStar students. It changed the landscape of education significantly. And had it not been for our technology department under the leadership of Deirdre and our amazing coaches, we would never have gotten through the pandemic in providing the kinds of support to our students and our staff that was critical. So kudos to all of you for making that happen. You deserve a very high level of commendation and a round of applause.
Thank you. I will say 100% we could not have done it without the support of the district administration and the Board of Education, without a doubt. So thank you for being so responsive to our needs, and we look forward to what's to come.
Okay, thank you very much. Letter C, we're going to get our final report from the Budget Advisory Committee. Ian Farber, no, Judy Wallace will be speaking.
Hi, I'm Judy Wallace, and I'm a member of the Budget Advisory Committee. For the past 3.5 months, our committee has attended countless meetings. We've reviewed a myriad of budget-related documentation, including past and current proposed budgets. No budget is perfect, nor is it likely for anybody to be 100% in favor of any budget. All the members of the committee have come to the table with varying perspectives and ideas. Through this collaboration of varying perspectives, we have provided the board and the administration with a framework that we will hopefully lead to greater efficiency and effectiveness in both the short term and the long term. We would like to acknowledge the big step in the right direction the board has taken by forming the BAC. We look forward to the continuation of the said committee for years to come. We strongly encourage all eligible voters to make it to the polls and take an objective and non-biased view when it comes time to vote on May 17th. So here are some of our final recommendations for the year. In regard to objectives, no cuts should be made to the classroom teachers, class sizes, electives, or programs unless it's needed for declining enrollment. Reduce all overall administration and reduce redundant positions throughout the district. Pay back the reserves that were used for COVID and increase the overall reserve whenever possible. In regards to administration positions, consider further reductions in central administration that result in actual cost savings, not reallocation of funds. Consider reevaluating the number of administrators in each school to reflect a declining enrollment over the last 10 years. Consider reviewing the chair position structure to increase efficiency and promote better transitions and cohesiveness K through 12. In regard to line item budgets, have each department go through their budget line by line and reduce all costs that have not been used over the last 3 years. This will lead to substantial savings. To provide detailed costs for the proposed accessible playground and gym floor at Arrowhead Elementary, which is budgeted in the amount of $425,000 in the capital funds budget line. Start to reduce the $4.4 million appropriated fund balance that is budgeted for next year. Reduce the budget line items that consistently have the highest percentage of unused funds. This will in turn reduce the appropriated fund balance for the next year to a reasonable level. The BAC recommended the district adopt a written fund balance policy to help guide when fund balances should be appropriated. This has also been the recommendation of the New York State Comptroller's Office, Division of Local Government and School Accountability. In regards to programs and staffing, consider revamping the mentoring program from 3 FTEs with a budget of $450,000 plus benefits and legacy costs to include less FTEs and utilize stipends from mentor teachers in designated teaching disciplines. This will allow considerable cost savings and give the ability to increase or decrease the services as needed without much added cost to the budget. This is a tough one. Consider returning technology coaches to the classroom in STEM or coding classes, as they should be used for student-facing instruction. Assistance with using technology can be performed by nearly any IT staff. Eliminate any mid-year hiring of new positions not disclosed to the public in the budget unless mandated by a child's IEP or 504. Our future recommendations for financial stability include: when negotiating all contracts, please keep in mind the future financial stability of the district and budget. Create a more transparent budget website. Including detailed budget information. Continue the Budget Advisory Committee yearly, starting in September. Have multiple budget workshops starting in January with a working budget. Create a program for high school students to be IT coaches. This will save the district some money and will be, and as well as a positive experience for the students with something to put on a college application. Investigate the possibility of moving grades to different schools, such as 9th grade to the high school and 6th grade to junior high. Continue to periodically research the best use of district buildings. This may include renting out a building, closing an elementary school due to declining or stagnant enrollment, and or other outside of the box proposals. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board or administration before we move on? So I'd just like to say on behalf of the Board of Education, again, that we thank all of the members of the BAC, including the high school student, which was great. We thank you. We applaud you, and we understand the amount of time and effort that everybody's put into this for a positive outcome. We know the truth, and we don't listen to untruths, okay, about this committee that the Board of Education has appointed, and we plan on absolutely continuing this. We're gonna clean it up and shape it up. It was the first year. It's never perfect, never will be, but there's always things that can be improved upon. And the first year, you guys did a fantastic job. And we're going to work with you, I think, a little bit more next year and improve and improve and improve, because you are a committee of the board, and we are proud to have you, and we are proud of all of the work you have done. So stay on your path and don't listen to outside noise, because that's all it is, okay? We know the work that you have put in, and we appreciate you as community members doing all of the work that you have done. So thank you very much. Okay. Okay.
You know, I'll also add that it was, sorry, Deanna, that I thought it was, reading through your recommendations was very interesting, and it was very validating, I thought, because a lot of these things were things that are in process. Some of these are especially some of the larger ones, are things that we've looked at over the course of a number of years. And having completed the deep dive that you did, and you came up with a lot of the same conclusions that we did, was very validating. And I think that you're going to find a lot to like in the budget that we're going to propose. So thank you very, very much for the hard work that you guys all put in. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate this partnership that we've had. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to reports D, the 2022-2023 budget review. Jeff Carlson.
Thank you. I would just like to comment on the Budget Advisory Committee. The amount of work they did was unbelievable. Tremendous amount of work. Hopefully all of the information you requested, I hope we got it to you as quickly as we could. I hope that was good enough for you. It was really unbelievable the amount of work you did, and it's really much appreciated. As Mr. Kornreich mentioned, a number of your recommendations, it's good to see that we are all on the same page with too. But I would like, I don't mean that as a but, I would like to address a couple of items that were brought up at the Budget Advisory Committee board meeting that was held several weeks ago. Answers were provided to the Budget Committee, but some people who might have watched the live stream of that may not have gotten those answers. So I would just like to go over some of those things that were covered, just to address some of those issues. Most of it has to do with the school funding transparency report from the New York State Education Department. And really the goal and what I want to point out is in some cases show that, well, we're not all that different from similar districts to us as far as what we spend. Of course, we think we're better than them anyway, but in some cases, absolutely we spend more than most districts. But I think because we have a more robust program than most districts on Long Island. And I would like to just highlight some of the flaws not in the Budget Committee report, in the school funding transparency report itself. So, for instance, one of the items that was, and by the way, just so I'm speaking to the members of the Budget Advisory Committee, you, as if I was in your shoes or anyone else, would look at the results of that funding transparency report and look at different districts and say, well, wait a second, why is Three Village so much more in this than, to use one example, Comac? And it would get my attention as well. And I would just like to point out to some people some of the things that in looking at this, now I don't know what goes into another district's, how they report it, right? I know how we report it for this report. Now remember, this isn't this fun and transparency report. It's not a report that the state education department puts together. They get the information from the school districts and then put it on their website. So it's self-reported information. So, and we know how things sometimes go with that. You know, some people read directions a little differently than others, for whatever reason. But one of the items, for instance, was labeled in that report central costs, right? So, and it looked like our central costs, meaning which kind of infers like central administration costs, are much higher than other districts. Well, a couple of items with that. So, in the number of districts that we were compared to, when working with the Budget Advisory Committee, some of those districts had, well, actually, of the, I think it's 20 districts on the list, 7 of them reported 0 in district-wide staff. So, in my opinion, the directions are pretty clear. District-wide staff means staff and departments that have district-wide responsibilities. And it specifically says in the directions, such as IT department, athletic department. We also have, every school district has a pupil personnel services department. It serves district-wide. So that's where we reported those costs. 7 of those districts on this list reported 0. And in contacting my counterparts in some of those districts, some of them said, well, we weren't sure how to put it. Some said, well, we figured it would look better if we allocated them to individual schools instead of reporting them as central administration costs. Okay. Also, along those same lines, one of the lines in central costs in that report is costs for Committee on Special Education and Committee on Preschool Special Education. Of those same 20 districts, 9 of them, not all the same districts as the district-wide staff, but 9 of them reported 0. Well, that can't be possible because every district has to have a CSE and a CPSE. So, for whatever reason, they reported that as allocated those costs to individual schools instead of reporting them centrally as we did. That's not trying to make the point that everybody did it wrong, we did it right. That's not what I'm saying. In some of these areas, they reported it differently than us. Another area within that central cost was, it's called other post-employment benefits. It's really the district's cost of retiree health insurance. So now the costs in these number of districts in the comparison vary from 1.9 million to 16.8 million, right? So why such a wide variety? Well, I'll give you an example. One district I contacted, who's similar size to us, had about a third of the $8 million less in that cost than we did. So I contacted the district, and the answer I got back was, well, after your question, we reviewed it and realized we did it wrong, and ours should be more like 12 million. Ours is 11.6 million. So those costs were there, but they were allocated to schools instead of being centrally. And then one more item, just to show the disparity among some districts, is the operations and maintenance of plant. That's also part of that central cost. So that's custodians, maintenance, grounds, also safety and security. Now, one thing about our buildings, we're very proud of every school district, I'm sure, is proud of their buildings. But I'm only talking about us. We're very proud of our buildings. We take great pride in keeping them clean and safe. Our security department is outstanding. We've had Department of Homeland Security come here because of the program we have and work with our staff. We've had the Department of Homeland Security have our staff go train with them, all at their cost. Federal government paid for all of it, to train with them. One of the only school districts anywhere in the country that has attended those programs because of the kind of security program we have here. And then, sad to say, but we just saw in Brooklyn yesterday the kind of things that are going on in the world, and that's why, and especially after what happened in Sandy Hook in 2012, that's when we really started ramping up our security program. It costs a lot of money. That's part of that cost. If you were to look at the per pupil expense, just that category, you would see we're significantly higher than almost all the districts on the list. There's one that's higher than us in that way. But that's a big expense of ours. So those are some of the central costs. So I would say, just in my opinion, to compare, at least use total cost. If you want to do a per student cost, not just a piece, especially if it's self-reported by the district. So now if we look at total cost per pupil, there are still some flaws within that report that the state does. So I'll give you an example. So the report starts with total spending, and then certain costs are excluded from that before the per pupil cost is calculated. So one of the costs that's excluded from it is tuition that's paid to BOCES, private schools, or agencies such as like Developmental Disabilities Institute, Center for Developmental Disabilities, those kind of agencies for private schools, or other school districts. Those tuition payments are excluded from that district's calculation. So now to take us and one district that I would say is pretty comparable to us in terms of size, demographics, programs offered, that kind of thing, I would say is Comac. We're pretty similar. Most of our special ed kids, so BOCES and those private schools, most of it's special ed. There could be times where it's regular ed, but for the most part, that's special ed costs. But most of our special education kids are educated within district schools, right? So even if we spent exactly the same, to the penny, as a district like Comac, for instance, who sends more kids to BOCES and private schools, their costs are excluded because they're paying tuition to another district. Our costs are not excluded because the schools are being educated in district. I think that's a flaw in the report itself, because it would lead to it's misleading in the terms of why would those same costs not count towards a per pupil cost just because they're paid to BOCES?
Jeff, does Comac have a significantly different percentage of classified students that are educated in district?
In district?
Yeah.
I would say so, because
that provides the delta, right?
Well, sure, yeah.
Okay.
So for instance, in the tuition paid to BOCES, private schools, and other districts, in our case, in the year of this report, was $4.3 million, right? So that $4.3 million is excluded from our costs in doing the per pupil allocation. Comac spends $12.2 million on out of district, right? So the $12.2 million is excluded from their total expenses. Now, one thing that kind of goes along with that is transportation. So on all districts, all transportation costs are excluded from the total spending before doing the per pupil cost, right? Right or wrong, it is. Okay. But now you take us and Comac again, right? And similar sized districts as far as number of kids, although we have about 200 more kids than they do, right? And actually, geographical size-wise, we're 22.6 miles, Comac is 12.9. Which gives us an enrollment per square mile of 259 kids. Comac's is 459, right? So all else being equal, you would think their transportation costs would be a little less, right? But they spend $15.7 million on transportation, and we spend $10.9 million. Now, part of the reason, I don't know, something flying around over there, at least a chunk of it, I don't know exactly what goes behind their number, but a good chunk of it would be the cost of those kids going to BOCES and those private schools. They cost a fortune. We have kids that cost $100,000 a year per student just for transportation, right? So by excluding all of that, that also skews the numbers a little bit. So let's just say, and again, just taking us and Comac and say, all right, instead of excluding those costs, right, add back the private schools and BOCES and transportation to both of us, right? So, and then do the per pupil allocation, it comes out to where us and them are $14 different per student. So we're higher, but $14 per student more than them. So my point in all of that is to show that, well, maybe we're not so different from the districts that are similar to us. So some of the other districts, though, are certainly much different demographics. And I don't mean that to criticize or speak poorly of any other school district. But some of the ones that I don't think it's a really fair comparison based on the demographics and the type of programs that are offered. Like for instance, one of the districts on the list is Copaig. And there's no disrespect to Copaig. Copaig's a great place. I used to work for the Copaig School District. I was the assistant business manager there 28 years ago. But it's a lot different than Three Village. And yes, absolutely, we spend more than they do, total and per pupil. Absolutely, we do. And now this is my opinion. I don't think it's fair to only compare us to districts that have more than 4,000 students. If you were to look at enrollment of schools on Long Island, right, take them all, plot them out, and do your bell curve, you would see in the measure of central tendency would show that a lot more districts would be comparable to us as far as size than just districts with more than 4,000 kids. So if we do that, if we include
Can you say
more,
that again?
Say that again?
Yes, say it again. I didn't get it.
So if you take all Long Island school districts, right? Plot out the enrollment in all of them and do the statistical analysis and the bell curve and figure out what's a good sample size. I think you would see a lot more districts would be fair game to compare to on a per pupil cost. Because now think about most of our costs, the biggest piece of our cost is teacher salary and benefits, right? And that's purely, that part is proportional with number of kids in a district, whether there's 900 kids in a district or 9,000 kids in a district. Yes, there are central administration costs, which can be a little different, but a lot of it's proportional. So again, it's just my opinion. I think to compare to more districts on Long Island, especially with more similar demographics to us, would be a fair comparison.
So is the implication then that larger districts are not necessarily much more efficient than smaller ones? I'm not understanding.
Well, I think I don't know.
Okay.
Which kind of my point.
Yeah.
I don't think to just say, I don't think it's a fair comparison to say, well, we only want to compare to districts with more than 4,000 kids. So if we include more of the districts on Long Island, and I'm not talking about the little districts, Fire Island, I think has 37 kids or something. Districts like Amagansett or Remsenburg, Wainscott, they have very few kids. I'm not talking about those kind of districts. And I'm not talking about like there are some, Floral Park Belrose School District, for instance, has 2 elementary schools. That's the whole district.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about those kind. I'm talking about more districts, like a Hauppauge or Cold Spring Harbor or districts like that. And if we do that, if we include those in our comparison, we would see there's a lot of districts that spend more per pupil by the same measure than we do. So that's just my opinion on comparing us to other schools. And that is, I don't think it's a fair comparison to say, well, districts with less than 4,000 kids can't be compared to us. That's just me. And I think demographics should be included in the comparison. Then some of the other things that we talked about with the budget committee, transparency, and I think, my opinion, again, I think we're as transparent or more than any other district. There might be difference of opinion, and there's also difference of opinion on exactly what transparency means, right? So, and just to take an example, one of the things we talked about was the Northport School District, right? Their budget has many more budget codes than us, okay? So, and that's fine, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have more, especially for like a budget committee who wants to look at all this kind of detail. But just so everybody knows, the reason we did the budget, in fact, some years ago, we consolidated budget codes to make it easier to read and more understandable. And this is what I mean when I say this. So the Northport School, it's not a criticism of them, not at all, but in their budget, they have for custodial salaries, right? They have, well, let me tell you ours first. We have 4 budget codes for custodial salaries. We have custodial salaries, we have custodial substitutes, we have overtime and weather-related overtime, 4 separate budget codes. Northport has 71 for the same thing. So now, Mr. Ehrlich, you are, and I mean this in a positive way, a super numbers cruncher. I don't want to use the word nerd, but
I'll say
you know, I'm a school business nerd, so I mean that in a positive way. So to say, well, you want more detail, well, that's great. I'd be more than happy to give you all the detail. But I just want you all to know that the reason we did it the way we did with our budget codes some years ago, consolidating, was to try to make it easier to read, not the other way around. So just want you to know that. When it comes to the recommendations that the Budget Committee has on fund balance, I couldn't agree more. You know, especially after what we used last year to keep schools open during COVID, it's vital that we're beginning with this year, this budget coming up now, to start working towards that. We have in the budget a line item for the first payment back of the reserves that we have to pay that we borrowed last year. We're reducing the amount of the appropriated fund balance in this proposed budget from what it was this year. And the reason, by the way, a year ago we increased that was because we said, well, if the budget, if remember, when we were going above the tax, the reason, by the way, the reason we were going above the tax cap last year was so we could start doing that, start replenishing our reserves, and not just replenish reserves from what we used from COVID, but also to have enough in the budget. We didn't know what COVID was going to be bringing. Last May, June, it looked like, okay, COVID's on the way out. That was before the Delta variant, but luckily we're able to get through. But that's why we went above the tax cap in the first place last year. And what did we say when the question, because the question was asked a lot, well, what happens if it fails? And we said, the board and us, we all said, we're not going to cut programs and services for kids if the budget fails. We will not do that. And we didn't. But how do we do that? Well, we use more appropriated fund balance for it. That's how we did that. So we always have to have some money left over in the budget. You know, the goal isn't to spend every penny. That's just like this budget we're proposing tonight. The goal isn't for, in this coming up year, to spend the entire thing. And any time we can save money, we'll save money. If we don't have to buy a new, if we budgeted for some new, new desks, it turns out we don't need them. Well, fine, we're not going to buy them then. If we can save the money, we'll save the money. We always will do that. And over time, that's where the fund balance and reserves come from. So, but I think we are all on the same page with that we want to, of course, we have to repay the reserves, what we borrowed, but we want to replenish the reserves over time. We want to be in a solid financial position, and hopefully we never have something like COVID again, but should it hit, we want to be in a position to keep schools open every day for every student like we did last year. Whether other districts are able to or not, we want to be able to do the same, and we want to be in a position to do that. And then the last item I think I want to mention before I talk about the budget itself is on the Budget Committee's, when Ms. Wallace, when you were talking, the $425,000 for the capital projects for Arrowhead, for the playground, handicap accessible playground, and the renovation of the gym floor. So the way capital projects work, that amount goes in the budget. The amount was derived at in consultation with our architect. After the budget, assuming the budget passes, then the architect draws up the plans. We submit them to the State Education Department. They sit on a shelf for 6 or 9 months up there, and then we finally get approval on it. Then we can go out to bid. When we go out to bid, hopefully it comes out less than that. If it comes out more than that, then we have to scale back the project somehow. So we don't have we don't have quotes, we don't have anything like that. The estimate is based on the architect's estimate of what it would cost. Of course, in this case, it's not like, well, this is the playground we want. It'll be what we can do with the money we have. But on any capital project, just so you know, when we go out to bid, And again, the goal isn't to spend all the money that was budgeted for it. If we budget $1 million for a roof, and a low bid comes in at $700,000, great, that's fantastic. Then we're not gonna spend the other $300 just because. And as a capital project, the state pays different amount for every school district. In our case, our building aid ratio is 66%. So the state will reimburse us 66% of the cost. After the project is done, they don't reimburse us all at one shot. They used to, but not anymore. They do it over a number of years. So that's my comments about the Budget Advisory Committee and your report. But fantastic work, and it was a pleasure working with all of you. We didn't always agree on everything all the time, but as I said, hopefully we got you the information you were looking for in at least a somewhat timely basis, and it set good groundwork for going forward for next year and years to come. So again, fantastic work, I really appreciate it, and it was a pleasure to work with all of you. So now I'll just
Jeff, before you go on, I just
Yes,
want
sir.
to say
talk some
that-
more about that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I want to reiterate also that
Too short.
that this effort that we embarked upon with the BAC, I understand that obviously it came at a busy time of year during budget season, and we had asked you at the onset if you could treat information requests from the BAC as if they came from the board, because they were really doing a lot of analysis and a lot of that heavy data lift for us and on our behalf. And I know that we saw the data requests going back and forth, and I know they were extensive, they were voluminous, and they came at a very, very busy time of year. And all of us on the board are really appreciative of the efforts of you and your staff and your office for doing all that extra work for us, to help us understand through the efforts of the BAC, to help us understand more deeply. Thank you very much.
And I'll tell you, one of the biggest projects in this was it was the staffing report that was done, and the vast majority of the work on that was done by Alan Baum and also Cheryl. But that was a tremendous amount of work. So
thank you.
Thank you. But thank you. Yes, sir.
No, I'm so sorry. We have to continue on. I'm so sorry. There's not now. After the meeting, absolutely.
Wait for public participation and then we'll.
After the meeting. All right, Jeff, it's time for your budget presentation.
Sure, okay. So, as we've talked in previous years about the tax levy, it's not automatically 2%, varies from year to year and district to district. However, in this case, for us, it happens to come out to right at 2.0%. This proposed budget that we have drawn up for you would have a tax levy increase of 1.82%. So this is the actual formula that when I say it doesn't come out to 2% for everybody, however, in this case, that's the formula that makes it come out to exactly 2% for us. So state aid was actually pretty good this year. You read the stories in the paper about the tremendous amount of money that's going to school districts. Now, most of the money that's additional state aid this year is in the form of foundation aid, which is geared more towards the lower wealth school districts, so they get the big numbers. We did get some, so I'm not complaining, but we didn't get the huge amounts that other districts got.
Did we get? The runs are in, right? The full.
Yes. Yeah.
And how did it compare with our expectation?
Yeah, a little higher.
Like how much
yeah.
higher?
I figured we'd probably wind up with somewhere in the $1 to $1.5 million of an increase, and it came out to 1.86 million. Okay. So yeah, it was pretty good actually. Yeah, surprisingly enough. But I was because the governor and the state legislature said they wanted to steer the money towards foundation aid.
Yeah.
So, but here's what they did, which worked out well. Every district, and the foundation aid is one of the pieces of our state aid that we get, and every district got at least a 3% increase in that. So that's why, if not for that guaranteed minimum increase to that, we wouldn't have gotten much.
Right, because we're on that hold harmless thing, right?
Well,
we get that.
yes, we're in the what's called the overfunded category. This, well, that's a whole different argument, but yes. So it's almost a 4% increase in the final budget. So we're happy with that. The staffing, as we did last time, Ms. Pettisich will go over that.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. So I know through the years you've heard me talk about declining enrollment, and now that enrollment at the elementary level is beginning to see a little bit of a different shift. We're beginning to see our elementary enrollment climbing up gradually. So at this point last year compared to our current year, we have about 89 more students. We're anticipating that that number is going to go up. And in order to keep our class sizes at our elementary level at what I would say are optimal levels, we think that's important. We will be adding one additional elementary class position district-wide. In addition, our ENL, which is our English as a New Language, used to be called English as a Second Language program, we're seeing an increase in the number of students over the last 2 years, significant increase in the number of students. And those students are also coming to us with academic gaps in their own from their own native countries. And as that population has increased, they're also coming with a multitude of other concerns that the district needs to support. As a result, we will be hiring a 0.5 ENL social worker who will be working primarily, I don't want to say exclusively, but primarily with that population across 3 buildings, and will be Spanish speaking, so to provide support to those parents in their home. A 0.1 of that social worker will not come from the district funding, but from our grant funding that Ms. Connolly has been able to pull out for the following year. So we're looking forward to that support for that special student population. We've been meeting with our administration, secondary administration, regularly over the last few months to look at our student course requests, and also to examine whether or not we need to actually have as many teaching staff positions at that level. So without affecting student course requests and also class size, we are able to make reductions in the areas you see there. So a 3.9, this is across 3 buildings. Well, actually, I should say 4 buildings if you include our academy. 3.9 in English, 0.7 in math, 2.0 in science, in global language, 1. ENL, which is English as a New Language, a 0.1, that was an overage. Social Studies, 0.6, and Music, 0.3. Again, these will not affect student course requests, or will it impact class size in any significant manner. Some of the reductions, other reductions that we have, I don't know if we want to go to the next slide. We had a resignation of one of our IT administrators earlier this year. So what we were able to do was look at our IT department and make some consolidation. And we are not replacing that position, but took some of the responsibilities, took all of the responsibilities that that individual had and spread it among 3 different members of the IT staff. So we were able to restructure in a positive way and save money for the school district. The next position that will be eliminated with this with the upcoming school year is our Director of Elementary Curriculum. Again, we were able to look at the position, evaluate how we could take those responsibilities and spread those out among existing administrative staff, to include looking at one of our elementary assistant principals to take responsibility for the pre-kindergarten program, which is a very robust program, as many of you know. It serves approximately 200 students district-wide. We also looked at our SAC program, which Ms. Connolly is in the audience. She'll be assuming responsibility for that for next year. And other responsibilities, curriculum responsibilities, will be spread to other administrative staff. The Director of Social Studies stipend will be eliminated. It's not an elimination of a position, but we have a coordinating chair of social studies at Ward Melville High School who also works with the junior high schools, and there are 2 leads in each of our junior high school. The next item is our school nurses. There is a recommendation for a 4.5 decrease. I want to speak a little bit to this. I know that our nurses are in our audience, and I don't want to diminish in any way everything they've done. They are an integral part of what we do in Three Village. They have been critical throughout the pandemic and have been a great support on the front lines, helping our students and staff. And we applaud their efforts. They are an amazing group of individuals. Prior to COVID happening, we had 17.5 nurses in our district, and we had what we call float nurses. Those nurses are not assigned to any particular building, but they would be assigned if a staff member was out or if we needed additional support in a building at any particular time to help us on field trips. When COVID hit, we created an isolation room in each one of our schools. And as a result of that, many of those float nurses were then assigned a particular building. And again, some of, in 2019-20, we had more students that had one-to-one nursing than we are projecting for next year. So the float nurses that were assigned to the buildings would then become float nurses again, because we know field trips are going to start picking up. We know that COVID is evolving and it changes. And after last year, we also released approximately, I'm going to say, close to 31 teaching staff members that had been hired during the 2021 school year so that we could have students 6 feet apart. So every time there is a change in COVID, we're changing with those COVID regulations. And if we do find that there is a need as things go on, because remember last year at this time we were all feeling very, very optimistic, right? July hit and the Delta variant became apparent. So we need to be able to say, if things change, we need to change with that as well. But we can't be stagnant, and we have to recognize, just like we did with our teaching staff, that we could go back to having more traditional classrooms, which is our hope for next year, school year.
As we did for the second vote last year, where all the voting was at the high school, we're going to continue that. That worked very well. If you remember, we used to have the voting at each of the elementary schools, and even just from a security standpoint, that was a nightmare. Because as you know or may not know, when somebody comes to vote, whether it's in a regular election or a school budget vote, we're not allowed to ask for ID. So we have to, the door can't be locked and we can't ask for ID. So at the high school, by the gymnasium, it works out perfectly. There's plenty of parking. Come right in. It's easy to secure that area from the rest of the building. Come in, vote, and leave. Also, it eliminates the confusion. As we know, not everybody votes in a school budget vote every year, and sometimes people haven't voted in a school budget vote ever, maybe. So there was always that confusion of they didn't really know where they're supposed to vote, because a lot of people have it in their head that, well, I live here, so on election day, when I go to vote for the president or whatever, I go to Minnesota School. But it may not be the same for a school budget vote. So this way, it's all at the high school. Hopefully it eliminates all the confusion. 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. as usual, Tuesday, May 17th. It's always the third Tuesday in May. To summarize the proposed budget, we're at a 1.72% increase budget to budget, which translates to a 1.82% increase on the tax levy. again, our tax cap is 2.0%, so this falls below that. Not going above the tax cap again. So since it doesn't, it would require the simple majority, meaning 50% plus one in order for the budget to pass. Now, if it does not pass the first time around, the options are the same as previous years. Present the same budget for a second vote, revise that budget and put that up for a vote, or go straight to contingency. So this year, going to contingency, whether it's because the budget fails twice, or after it fails once, if the board chooses not to have a second vote, it means no increase to the tax levy at all, which is what we had this past year. And from this proposed budget would require $2.95 million in reductions, somewhere along the line. We don't know what would be cut. That would be something that we would have to discuss with the board should we get to that place. Hopefully we don't again, but we'll see. And that's it. Just remember.
Jeff,
vote.
I have a question for you.
Yes, Doctor.
Talking about this with cutting and things like that, what's the cost of our Wellville program, which we are unique in and we are very innovative in? So what's the cost of that in our budget?
Well, we have a full-time person there, staff person, so that's basically a teaching position.
One FTE.
One FTE teacher, yes.
And that's necessary? You need one full-time person there to run? I don't really understand the program very well.
Maybe.
Well, that's the way it is currently structured, and it has been structured since its inception. And there are different, I'm going to say satellite, I'm going to say centers in each one of our buildings that are not staffed, where a staff member could go and decompress. And there are programs provided in each one of the buildings through the leadership of the person who is in charge of Wellville. But it has been that way since its.
So there's no staff manning the other schools, just the high school.
That
Correct?
is correct, but the individual who is at the high school will go to the other buildings for programming after school or during the day.
They're on the flex. Programming, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Different activities that the staff would be involved in during their free period or after school.
Okay.
That is connected to staff wellness, health and wellness.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the 0.5 we just put on for the social worker for the E&L.
Yeah.
Just a thought, I mean, she's 0.5, can we put her full-time, 0.5 doing E&L, and 0.5 running Wellville?
She has clinical experience.
She has, that's true. I don't know, it's just I mean, and put the full-time teacher back in the classroom.
Just as a point of clarification, the full-time teacher is in MSW and does have a social work degree.
Yeah, no, I'm just, well, not clinical, but that's not the point. Just to, another way to maybe save on the budget. I don't know what anybody thinks about that.
The teacher who's doing it now is a high school teacher?
No, she was an elementary teacher, but she has a degree in social work.
But in theory, then, if she's an elementary teacher, she could potentially slide into that empty slot that we needed for elementary?
Theoretically, yes.
I just think that we have to be, especially when we're contemplating cuts and we're talking about accessing people, I think that we should approach it with the greatest sensitivity towards really looking at what's essential and prioritizing things.
It's a difficult situation with that because you have a definite need as being a language person you definitely need a Spanish-speaking person in order to deal with our families that are moving into our area. We definitely need a social worker that can speak Spanish fluently. We just had recent situations where we needed to have someone go to a home and speak in Spanish to the parents. The Wellville, I'm not too sure if we can continue with that if we're going to be adding another social worker.
Well, the social worker is a .5. So if you think about it, you know, if you think she's a .5, which we desperately need her. That's not
Exactly.
whoever she is.
Without a doubt.
That's not the
So
the
maybe you
issue.
can have, the Wellville can be a .5.
That's the point. And
But-
now, you know, we can reduce, I don't know, Gary, how many teachers are we having to hire?
Sorry, we have to hire 3, you're talking elementary, just elementaries, 3 elementary teachers.
Okay, and then we'd only have to hire 2. And nobody's losing a job.
And no one's losing a
nobody's
job.
losing
And
a
you
job.
have, and then you have everything covered.
What would that do, Jeff? I mean, I know it's not huge, but it's just saving an additional.
Yeah, well, that would save, that would save a .5 of an FTE. My suggestion, if that's what was going to be done, my suggestion would be to not even change the budget. It could still within the budget. So, and if it wound up that we had an additional .5 FTE, you know, we could always, it would never hurt to have that position just in case some more kids come in over the summer and we need to add the teacher position. Instead of removing the money from the budget now, we could do that, move the person into elementary and make that social worker a 1.0. We save that 1.5 and we have it there as like a contingency, half a contingency position, should we need it.
Okay.
So Jeff, regarding the recommendation by the BAC, can you comment on what has already been implemented in the new budget and what we will be working on?
Sure. Sure. Well, okay, I'll just go down the list. So we did not make any cuts to any of the programs or services, except for as warranted by decline in enrollment or course requests by students. We did do some 2 administrative cuts. We do have a line item in the budget to begin paying back our reserves. We'll always consider looking at positions. If we don't need them, then that's fine. We'll in the item, consider further reductions. We will absolutely consider, the administrative positions category, the 3 items there. Sure, we can absolutely consider that as we go forward. And that's one thing with the change in enrollment, that it might create opportunities that weren't there some years ago, and I agree. The budget line items, we did go through a lot of them and reduce. Budget committee made some excellent points in that, and we did reduce some of those, and we'll continue to do that, absolutely. I spoke about the Arrowhead Playground, the fund balance. I couldn't agree more on that. We want to lower that appropriated fund balance. We are lowering that in this coming up year's budget, and we will continue that going forward. And hopefully, within a few years, we have our reserves all paid back. We're replenishing. We get that down to much lower than it is in the appropriated fund balance, and we'll be ready for COVID round 2. And hopefully it never happens, but we'll be ready for it. The mentoring program, well, that's something that, you know, that'll be for further discussion with the mentoring, the technology coaches, that would have to be more discussion with the board as we go forward. Eliminate any mid-year hiring of new positions not disclosed to the public in the budget unless mandated by a child's IEP or 504. I'm not so sure we can make that guarantee because it could be. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would, if you don't mind,
No,
I'm going
of
to
course not.
interject on that.
Yeah.
There are two scenarios in which that would be almost impossible to do. One could be at the high school where students have courses that they may not have passed, and we have to create an additional 0.2 or a 0.1 in order to have a course for the student so that they could pass. So those students may not be special needs students. Another time where that may happen is during the summer, and I've said this many times before, kindergarten enrollment is often very difficult to project. We do pretty well in projecting all of the other grade levels, but kindergarten enrollment is not one. We had one year where in Minnesota they had something like 20 some odd additional students, and we had to open a class, and that happened in August. So we need to be prepared for those kinds of situations, and that's why we do put staffing in contingency for that purpose.
So I just adding onto that, I would like to suggest that if there is a contingency position, you know, I'm thinking that in the presentation before that Ms. Rubenstock did, you made reference to Laura Pimentel's presentation, which was excellent and provided a lot of data-backed conclusions about where we need to help support the academic program, and it was very clear from that presentation that any additional support we can provide in mathematics at the elementary level is very, very valuable and pays dividends for years to come, and I think it's a great investment in our students. So to the extent that there's a contingency position available, I would love to see it used for supporting math at the elementary level.
We do have math leads in each of our buildings, and we also have a very robust math AIS program.
Right, but I think that the finding, what I took away from that presentation that she did was that there's still a gap, there's still a skills gap. So I understand that we have some supports, but I'm personally just recommending further investment in that, because we've seen the cumulative nature of math education that once kids start falling behind. So as long as there's a gap that exists, I say we push resources towards closing that gap.
Do we still have the math lab in the elementary school? I know we had it in the secondary. We still have it in the elementary, correct?
Yes, we have math AS in the elementary level, yes.
We always have.
But we had, at one point, we had 2 teachers per building. Right now, some of our buildings have 2, a few have only 1 with a TA that supports them.
So in reference to Wellville, and the board is not trying to dismantle it, we think it's extremely important, and we are very supportive of that for our teachers and staff. But as far as, you know, saving positions and not having to hire more than we need, do we have a consensus from the board as far as utilizing a 0.5 versus a full-time position in that role? Definitely everybody? Unanimous?
I'm not sure how that will actually translate, and we would, administration, members of the clinical staff would really need to look at that a little more carefully before I want to be able to say that that could be done in a seamless manner.
We definitely, well, I think we just want to have a discussion, and any other ways we can find, the board can find ways to keep everything status quo, but maybe make some movement, and I think it's a win-win for everybody. Anybody else on the board have any questions or comments about anything?
The idea of having additional access to a multilingual social worker.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's great.
It's fantastic.
Adding, changing that from a 0.5
Right.
to a 1, I think.
Yes,
Yeah, it would be great.
absolutely. Agree. I think we all agree on that one. Yes. Okay. Okay, 6, items for board discussions. Turning this over to Sue with some good news report.
I feel like we had a lot of good news tonight earlier, so I'll just add a couple more onto that. Three Village celebrated Music in Our Schools Month in March. That's an annual event engaging music educators, students, and communities across the country. Locally, our events included hosting Skamia Eastern Division Festival concerts, the amazing musicals at Jelinas and Murphy that engaged more than 90 students in each school, Symphony Sunday and Ward Melville's Got Talent at the high school, and the NYSSMA Satellite Festival and Music Without Borders, a program that matched our Tri-Am Music Honor Society students with younger students in grades 4 through 9, offering them free 30-minute music lessons. So lots of applause for our young musicians and their wonderful teachers. And an outside of school note, congratulations to Ward Melville's Ava Della Pietra, who won the Outstanding Achievement in Songwriting in the Pop Top 40 category for the Great American Song Contest.
Thank you, Sue. We love your report, your board report every board meeting. Number 7, items for board action. Policy 6400, depositories of funds. Dr. Allenbaum.
To stand up. You know, all the presentations were terrific tonight, but I have the unique pleasure to offer the shortest presentation of the evening. This proposed policy 6400, depository of funds, is in line with the recent comptroller's recommendation to the district. This puts into policy and allows the district to do online banking. It allows us to do electronic and wire transfers. It has appropriate checks and balances that there are only very few select people in the district that could trigger that, and they're all under the direction of Mr. Carlson's office. Yes. I bet.
Okay. Can I please have a motion? Second. Okay. You good, Inger? Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Motion passes. 7B, approval of a memorandum of agreement between the Three Village Central School District and UPSEU Aid/Monitors Unit. Gary?
Yes, ma'am. So this is submitted for your approval is the final memorandum of agreement that extends the contract for UPSU Aids and Monitors till 2025.
Fantastic. Can I please have a motion? Second? Questions? All in favor? Motion passes. 7C, adoption of 22-23 recommended budget and property tax report card. Jeff Carlson.
Yes, the recommendation is, as I mentioned, to adopt the budget with a budget-to-budget increase of 1.82%, which carries a tax levy budget-to-budget increase of 1.72%, with a tax levy increase of 1.82%.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion passes. Consent agenda. A, approval of consent agenda. We're just going to do our motion and vote at the end, so motion first and motion. Can I please have a motion first? Second?
Second.
Okay. Inger's got that. B and C, minutes of March 9th and March 23rd.
Nothing unusual, just
Right.
the minutes.
Okay. D, acceptance of donations.
We have 2 donations. The first is a check for $1,000 donated by the Long Island Community Foundation Matthew Grimaldi Memorial Fund to the Ward Melville High School Scholarship Fund, and a check for $2,000 from the Setorkit PTA to fund a 4th grade field trip to Blydenburg Park for an arts and education program through BOCES.
Thank you. E, approval of addendum to contract with outside service provider for special education services.
This is to add some services to an existing contract that we have with an outside provider.
Okay. F and G, Jeff, appointment of fiscal advisor and appointment of bond counsel for 22-23.
All right, this is for our tax anticipation note.
Thank you. No, we're not done yet. H, personnel matters, non-instructional. Gary, please.
Yes, ma'am. For non-instructional, submitted for you tonight is the resignation of 2 clericals, 2 clerical subs, additional district-wide non-instructional personnel. We have 4 people requesting unpaid leaves of absence. They are monitors and SEAs for a short term. We are hiring additional security, SAC workers and SEAs. We have upgrades in clerical positions due to reassignments or promotions. We're hiring 3 additional sub-custodians, and we have a salary adjustment in IT due to a change of responsibilities.
Thank you. Also, Gary, personnel matters on instructional.
Certainly. For that, we have one teacher retirement. We have resignations due to accept new positions or substitute positions. We hired one social worker, one leave of absence for speech, 6 sub-teachers and TAs, several coaches, co-curricular, supervision for Model UN student government, summer math AIS, region class reviews, and we have 2 administrative salary adjustments due to a change in responsibilities.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Letter J, approval of the memorandum of agreement between the Three Village Central School District and the Three Village School Administrators Association regarding the changes to titles, salaries, and stipends for specified positions. Gary?
Yes, this MOA is presented to you, and it refers to the restructuring of several administrative positions and the abolishment of one administrative position.
Thank you. Letter K, approval of memorandum of agreement between the Three Village Central School District and the Three Village Teachers Association regarding the addition of a new coach. Gary?
Yes, we were fortunate enough to receive money, I believe, from the New York Jets to help us start a girls' flag football team. We now need somebody to coach it, so we have to add the position.
Okay. Tell all your friends, see if you have anybody that you can recommend. Maybe you'll get a reward. Be fantastic. Letter L, extension of probationary period, Jewel agreement. Gary?
Yes, this is the agreement regarding the employee that we discussed in exec session to extend the probationary period.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Letter M and N is going to be Kevin. Recommendations of Committee on Special Education, Subcommittee and Accommodation 504, plan meetings of, and recommendations of Committee on Preschool Special Education meetings of. Nothing. That's just facts of meeting dates. So, does anybody on the board have any questions for B through N that you'd like to speak about? Okay. So now we're okay. Everybody, all in favor? So the consent agenda is passed. Okay. Moving things. Oh. Okay. So the next Board of Ed meeting will be May 4th, and now we're going to go into our public participation. We do have one. And I think I have our district attorney that's going to make a statement, and then we will have our speaker.
Thank you. The Board of Education has been advised that a member of the Three Village Nursing Unit may be publicly speaking this evening regarding the status of negotiations. The board would like to remind the nursing unit that the negotiating teams have agreed to a ground rule in bargaining that the district would not engage in public bargaining unless and until the nursing unit engaged in public bargaining. Further, any public statements on the status of negotiations are premature at this time, since the nursing unit has not completed their presentation of its proposals and canceled the last bargaining session. Therefore, the Board of Education has not had an opportunity to review and respond to any of the union's proposals during bargaining. Thank you.
Okay. So our public participant, Ann Chamelis. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I get to make this nice and short because I only have 3 minutes.
Just state your name, please.
Ann Chamelis. Can you hear me all right? I don't really need the microphone. I'm a high school teacher. I'm betting you can all hear me without it, but I'll talk into it anyway. So I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I showed up in support of and to listen to the budget presentations, and I saw a number of our district nurses here and talked to them and felt the need to stand up and speak. I have 30 plus years of experience teaching. I've had the privilege of starting as a preschool teacher and slowly but surely working my way all the way up to a senior, teaching seniors in high school. It's given me the unique opportunity to see how nursing works amongst the entire district buildings. I also had the privilege of having a mother and an aunt who were RNs who worked for the New York City Board of Education and the New York State Department of Health. I'm just going to name some of the challenges that having only one nurse in a building will present if you get rid of 4.5 nurses. I've never seen a nurse have a real lunch period in 30 years of teaching. It just doesn't happen. You mentioned school field trips already. That continues to be an issue. We seem to have an increase of allergies across our society. I'm not sure why, but that necessitates a lot of work by our nurses. An increase in need for more intensive nursing care for students with advanced health problems who are now in public settings who used to be in private settings. We also have after-school activities and sports, et cetera. I happen to be soon-to-be retired COMAC teacher, and our nurses at the secondary level and high school level actually stagger their arrivals so that there's someone there before school and someone there after school. There are a lot of after-school activities that happen at elementary schools as well. If you only have one nurse, that's impossible for all the sports and clubs and all those great enrichment things that we offer our students. In-school injuries leave nurses' offices unattended if there's only one nurse. What if there's more than one emergency, which I can tell you happens often. You mentioned riding AM and PM buses, on field trips. Parent communication was another thing that I talked with a nurse tonight about and is absolutely true. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with my daughter's school nurse this year. If there's only one nurse, that nurse is not going to have the time to make communication with parents unless there's a real emergency. And just in case some of you might have forgotten, COVID isn't over. We're still following state-mandated protocols. As good as things are, as wonderful as it is that we're still here, this pandemic has not passed. I was going to end with something else, but you started talking about the collaborative efforts and support needed to return to pre-pandemic life. Nurses seem like they should be on top of the list of those thanked, and I'm glad that they were thanked after I wrote that. This is still a global health crisis. Cutting nurses now while still living through this pandemic should not be a line item in plans to cut the school budget. And I don't in any way mean that means I don't support the school budget. I always support school budgets, but I'm horrified to think that we're going to lose nurses at the elementary level. It's just not tenable. And it's really not a situation we should be moving forward. As we've all talked about in the lengthy conversations and presentations we've had tonight, we shouldn't be moving backwards. Thank you.
Thank you. I have an email from a resident, a Mrs. Kim Biello, that I'm going to read that she sent in. Good evening. Sadly, I could not make it in person tonight, but would like to address a few things that have been occurring since the last time I attended in person. First would be the snide comment that the president of the Board of Ed made at the end of the March meeting when the public participation came around. It was very small-minded to think that because the mask mandates have been lifted, that parents do not have other concerns and or issues to address. Not every month can we attend, and not every meeting in the past was masking the only issue that parents have addressed. It makes the BOE look bad when the comment was made. Second, in another touchy subject, but it needs to be addressed, we have many DEI committees within our district. Each of our individual schools have a committee, and then the district level that works within all the smaller groups. It has come to the attention of some parents that the parents in some schools that have signed up to participate have not attended many meetings, and new parents that are looking to join are told there is no room. There also seems to be no consistency in certain school committees. Meetings started out as virtual, then went to a choice of in-person or virtual. Without notification in one school that I have been told, parents are no longer given the chance to attend virtually, and meetings are many times have been changed to new dates and times that the parent participants cannot attend. This needs to be addressed. We need these committees to have parents present in all capacities. The other half of this meeting minutes is meeting minutes and agendas. Have you taken a look recently at the district page? There are barely any minutes posted from any of the committees. The community should not have to continually ask for minutes to be posted from these meetings. The laziness needs to stop, and the information needs to be put up. Things are taking place during these meetings, and the community needs to be aware. This is not the first time this has been addressed either, so I would like either action taken on this and an update ready for the next meeting. Exclamation point. Next thing I would like to address once again is a hot cold issue but needs to be spoken about. We have heard over and over again about diversity, equity, and inclusion within our district during meetings and on many social media pages. I am all for our children learning new things and being educated on all individuals in our community. That is a huge part of DEI, to make sure we are all equally representative. Yet, that's not the case. Us, loud majority, quote unquote, has been told that certain religions are not represented enough and that many of our holidays and traditions are overrated and commercialized. Doesn't seem too equitable, right? We have had bulletin boards for one holiday not put up this year in order to put a bulletin board up for another one that has never been celebrated or represented in the schools. Why couldn't both be represented? Why are we now taking away things to add new things? Why are our children having high school students come in to read books about Ramadan, yet we haven't had any books read or lessons about Easter or Passover? Why during the winter holiday season did our elementary students come home with a bunch of dreidels, but nothing in regards to Kwanzaa or Christmas? If we are going to support and push for DEI in schools, we then need to make sure that each holiday is represented and spoken equally, because it is not happening. We cannot have the choir preaching for diversity, equity, and inclusion when it's more like we pick what we want to include and call holidays traditions, quote unquote. It's offensive, exclamation point. One last issue that needs to be addressed is certain staff and administration within our district not supporting a school dance due to the wording of it because it was not all gender inclusive. Yes, many in the community are aware of what had happened in this situation. This is in regards to an elementary school's special someone's dance, where the PTA was made to include at the bottom of the flyer that, quote unquote, this is not a district-sponsored event. This kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable and should be addressed. Although PTA is a separate entity within the district, normally building staff helpfully work with the PTA to make things successful. Why is this kind of behavior being allowed? Why would the district not support something as simple as a special someone's dance? These issues are not good or a good look for the district. Many are aware of it, and it's just sad. Parents have chosen Three Village School District for our children due to its great reputation. Why are we so easily letting this go out the window? So many families are moving or have already left. New people are moving in but aren't fully aware of what is currently happening within the district. We need to make changes, and it needs to happen soon. Please also note that some items brought up are on behalf of parents that have brought these concerns up to me, as in the past it was thought everything I stated was my personal opinion. Excuse me. Thank you for your time, Kim Biello. So I'd just like to make a quick comment. The comment that I made at the March meeting, which is the first meeting we didn't have to wear masks. We were happy. We were excited. So at the end of the meeting, when it was time for public participation, the district clerk informed me there was no public participation. So I said, no public participation. And no masks. No masks, because we didn't have to wear it, and I was excited to say that, as everybody was very happy to not have to wear them anymore. So I don't really agree that this was a snide remark. It was a happy remark. And if you want to address what you want to address. And Mrs. Biello, I know you're not here tonight, but if you're watching from home, my contact information is public. I would love to sit down and speak with you, with my Vice President, Sue Rosenzweig, and with Dr. Gold, anytime you'd like, so we can have a conversation about DEI and all of the concerns that you've written in your statement.
So I'll talk a little bit about the DEI committee, but I also don't want to take away from Dr. Gold's presentation, which will happen at the June Board of Education meeting. I just want to clarify that each one of the buildings are building their own website within our website, and some of them are more fledgling than others. We do not include minutes at all. We have our meeting agendas, but minutes are not included, and have not been, and that was clarified previously. I also want to state that the district level committee has approximately 60 people. It's probably the largest district committee in existence. And right now, we are not accepting any new members on that committee. As people do drop off, we would allow additional community members and parents and staff to join. However, at each one of the buildings, anybody can join those committee meetings. Those are open and welcome, and in fact, if you even look at the arrowhead, it says all are welcome. In terms of some being virtual and some being in person, we have been trying to transition more to in-person meetings as best we can. However, we're still in a hybrid mode, so to speak, in which some of the meetings, some of the individuals are there virtually and some are in person. We are not putting any kind of constraints on the fact that it must be in person or must be virtual. We're trying to include as many people as possible. As one of the subcommittees of the DEI committee is a literature committee, and I think April Hatcher and Betsy Knox would probably be the two best people in terms of looking at our libraries and making those accessible for all different kinds of literature for our students so that they can be exposed. But I think that if Mrs. Balillo has any additional questions, they could certainly be addressed to Dr. Gold, who is our coordinator of the DEI committee, and he would be very happy to address those. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the board on anything tonight?
Dave, did you have a statement that you wanted to make? You good? Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? First, second, all in favor?
I never get to move anything.
Thank you and good night.